This is Ambazonia Calling. News, analysis, commentary, opinion, editorials. Ambazonia Calling is a co-production of Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. Welcome. My name is Ntumfoyn Herbert, and I bring revolutionary greetings from our studios in Washington, D.C. to all of you, friends of Ambazonia and fellow Ambazonians on Ground Zero and across the globe.
Amba boys do not have the capability to take away almost 80 students, including a few teachers.
The crime that never was at PSS Ntumfoyn. This is Manjong Jude Ambe.
We dug into the details of everything for you, and we have the radio film. This is Divine Angel.
Many other pieces of evidence now reveal that it was most likely a government job done to justify labeling Ambazonian freedom fighters as terrorists. Innocentia, Ambazonia Calling.
Ambazonians are entitled to the empowerment that comes with having a say in who leads them to BOYO. This is C. Ajimbo Ambe.
There is danger in heated calls for all Ambazonians to shut up and wait till we get to BOYO. This is Lambert Mbom.
Mimi Mefo, the Deputy Editor-in-Chief at Equinox TV in charge of English news, has been released.
The Cameroon Republic is a de facto one-party state. The existing practices prevent the opposition from ever winning elections. This is the monk.
The overwhelming majority is for legal, diplomatic, non-violent and peaceful separation from the Fed Union. This is Tani Jude Agua Ozugen.
Criminals are laughing at the law. Let us unmask the pathological liar and lord of hollow promises, Paul Biya.
This is
DONGA-MANTUNG.
A very happy Sunday to you and welcome to Ambazonia Calling. Let's begin straight away. Here to begin our show is Lambert Mbom with our editorial.
One burning question that comes to mind as the Ambazonian revolution rolls on is, when is it okay to criticize people, groups, ideas, and even a government during a revolution? It depends on whom you're asking. You have heard some of the excuses for not criticizing. We are in a revolution. Or better still, we are at war. These have been patented by Ambazonians as the escape valve. The Ambazonia independence quest has given rise to intractable divisions and rifts. The rise and reign of loud-mouthed surrogates on the one hand, and the uncommitted, non-aligned who stand with everything and anything has meant there is either the graveyard of silence and Wugodu no on one hand, and the madding online crowd of surrogates on the other. Anyone who dares to criticize faces name-calling. You are an agent of the colonizer. You have been sold and bought by the CPDM. You are an enemy of the revolution. Critics are chastised with the same heavy dose of praise that is lavished on preferred leaders. The biggest single calculated attempt to silence criticism is to claim, who could ever disagree with that? It is to claim falsely that criticism is to blame for lack of unity. The claims of division are fake because Ambazonians are absolutely united in their aspiration to see an independent Ambazonia. They disagree, as they must, on strategies to get there. Ambazonians will never catch their errors, learn from their errors, or correct those errors unless they accept criticism. Rejection of any X-raying of leaders or movements by their surrogates is such that for every supporter, their leader sees no evil, does no wrong, and is always right. Now, that is a recipe for disaster. When every supporter sees only the emperor's new clothes, the naked truth is crucified at the altar of leadership idolatry. reports of infighting are dismissed as fake news. During his recent visit to Washington, D.C., Professor Lumumba was very clear about what Ambazonian leaders and leaders everywhere should expect.
And let me remind you that when you are in a position of leadership, the only thing that you must expect is criticism. That is all. If by chance anybody praises you, thank God. Leadership is not a bed of roses. Leadership is about being insulted. Leadership is about being accused for every offense known to us except the crucifixion of Jesus Christ.
When a group of persons arrogate to themselves the title of government, they and their surrogates should not and cannot expect to be insulated from being harangued and criticized. When a group of people take upon themselves the responsibility to be the gadfly and vanguard of the revolution, they cannot then expect to be free from criticism. It is called freedom of expression, enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 19. There is danger in heeded calls for all Ambazonians to shut up and wait till we get to BOYO, where apparently those who are now so opposed to being criticized will suddenly have an epiphany and accept criticism as sacrosanct. You lie. The reason critics and political dissidents are often shut down is perhaps rulers want noise to take over the public square, making it difficult for anyone to distinguish between fact, propaganda, and the truth. Ambazonians have been overfed on lies, half-truths, and propaganda, and continue to be malnourished on facts and the truth. Yet, this revolution will be won on facts and truth. Only the truth will set Ambazonia free. Beware those who want you to believe that during a revolution, ignorance is bliss. In fact, ignorance is a curse. It is only if Ambazonians, beginning with their leaders, accept, nay, fully welcome, embrace, and learn from criticism that this revolution will allow Ambazonia's boarding press the chance to do its job and be one day acknowledged, as did David Ramsey, writing about the American Revolution, that the pen and press had merit equal to that of the sword. This is Lambert Mbom for Ambazonia Calling.
There are two Cameroons that came together. If you are telling us that what happened in Cameroon is like dropping a few cubes of sugar into a basin of water, who is the sugar and who is the water?
This is Ambazonia Calling.
Still ahead in this edition, we have The Devil Unmasked with Professor Emmanuel Tatamenta. We have a winner for the Nyamfuka of the Week. And we are not done until we have heard our letter to Joshua. So stay tuned, kick back, relax, and enjoy Ambazonia Calling.
Does the president of this country know that the governors and the DOs and all the administrators we have sent to West Cameroon are out there behaving exactly like an army of occupation?
Here's Innocent Chair with the first part of a news wrap-up.
Mimi Mefo, the deputy editor-in-chief at Equinox TV in charge of English news, has been released from the New Bell prison in Douala, Cameroon following her arrest Wednesday, November 7th. Released Saturday under tremendous national and international pressure, Mimi Mefo wore her trademark smile, much as the look on her eyes spoke of sleepless and restless nights in the former residence of ex-convict Paul Atanganji, current Minister of Territorial Administration. Principally, Mimi was court-martialed and due to appear before a military tribunal Monday for attributing the death of the American missionary Charles Wesco 2 weeks ago to the Cameroon military, a fact which she sourced from the family of the deceased. In a statement following her release, the general manager of Equinox TV thanked the public and team of lawyers headed by Barrister Alice Nkom for standing by Mimi. The president of the Ambazonia Governing Council, Dr. Lucas Cho Ayaba, has outlined a robust rebuttal to President Paul Biya's invitation for Ambazonia freedom fighters to lay down their arms.
In declaring war, Mr. Biya thought, as he has done in the past 56 years, that Ambazonia will be crushed. Mr. Biya was convinced that his military was invincible, that they were going to defeat us in the battlefield, officially make Ambazonia a conquered land, impose their domestic laws on our country, and continue to treat our people like slaves.
Dr. Ayaba said the Never Again generation has humbled him.
Mr. Biya never knew that the Never Again generation will rise up from every block in Ambazonia.
He said Biya has failed to vilify Ambazonia before the international community and failed to elicit France.
He thought he was going to mobilize the international community against us, that he was going to build on the 1961 conspiracy that saw the United Nations, saw the United Kingdom and France bonded together against the vote for Ambazonian independence. Mr. Biya thought he was going to invite France to reshape its geopolitical reality in the Central African sub-region, give him the support he needed, not only to survive as an 86-year-old dictator, but to make his country prevail over our own country.
Dr. Cho saluted the bravery and determination of Ambazonia for fighting a war sandwiched by two nations, none of which support her.
This is an unprecedented moment in our history, a moment we should never forget, a moment that will change the landscape of Africa, rewrite the theory of revolutions, rewrite the determination of a people, hemmed in by two countries that none of which support us, but that our shared determination, our shared will to survive on the same spot on which our forebears were murdered will make us a triumphant people.
He invited universal participation from Ambazonians for them to be primary investors in the revolution so we can all own the outcome.
That the collective aspiration of the Ambazonian people will be expressed in the method in which they defend their homeland, that there will be universal participation in the effort to decolonize Ambazonia, that you will become the primary investors in your own liberation so you can own the outcome. That determination has translated into an international recognition in our effort to be free.
And finally, he called for a day of rage against Cameroon.
Let Mr. Biya know that the war he declared on us will end the history of Cameroon once and for all. And I call on every soldier of the revolution to remember the 30th of November as the day Mr. Biya declared war on Ambazonia. Make this day a day of rage. Make this day a day of rage against Cameroon.
Dr. Samuel Sako, president of the self-proclaimed interim government group, also decried President Biya's calls for Ambazonians to lay down arms. The U.S. Department of State has issued what many observers consider to be its strongest statement yet on the ongoing crisis in Cameroon. Spokesperson Heather Nauert wrote in a statement November 6th that in memory of American missionary Charles Wesco and all others who have lost their lives in the Anglophone crisis, we urge all the sides to end the violence and enter into a broad-based reconciliatory dialogue without preconditions. End quote. In a similar move, the chairperson of the African Union, Musa Faki Mahamat, has remained gravely concerned at the continued violence in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon and calls for renewed efforts to address the situation and find a lasting situation through an inclusive dialogue. You are listening to Ambazonia Calling. I am Innocent Chia and we're only getting started.
You have plenty of show yet to come, so don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
The people of West Cameroon cannot be your slaves. The people of West Cameroon are not. You did not conquer them in war. The problem we have in West Cameroon is the problem that will bring down Cameroon. When people have had pent-up anger and pain, humiliation, for over 50 years, when it bursts out, you will never be able to control it.
going straight back to Innocent Chair with the second part of our news wrap-up for the week.
The chairperson of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mahamat, joined the international community Wednesday, November 7th, in welcoming the release of 79 school children in Cameroon's occupied territories known as Ambazonia.
The French Cameroon government has state-managed this so to paint our restoration forces as terrorists, something they've always done.
The 79 students and 3 members of staff of PS Ntumfoyn were abducted November 5th by yet-to-be-identified men.
Amba boys do not have the capability to take away almost 80 students, including a few teachers. They don't have the capability.
While the government immediately started blaming Ambazonian freedom fighters, imposed curfews, the logistics of transporting such a large number of students, testimony from the students and many other pieces of evidence now reveal that it was most likely a government job done to justify labeling Ambazonian freedom fighters as terrorists.
A government that shoots at gunpoint its own citizens to kill, as the BBC reported in north of Cameroon, would do anything. And the reason we believe they are doing this is to distract international attention from the murder of the American missionary in the same city last week.
The American embassy in Yaoundé, Cameroon, has, in a Friday, November 9th travel advisory, joined other diplomatic missions in cautioning their nationals against insecurities at the Yaoundé-Simalène International Airport. A combination of airline companies that fly into Yaoundé had forewarned that unless Yaoundé addresses its security lapses, their flights will no longer land in Yaoundé. This could potentially land a fatal blow on whether or not CAF makes the final decision to have Cameroon host the 2019 African Cup of Nations. Professor Maurice Kamto, candidate at the just concluded presidential election in Cameroon, was arrested and later released in Yaoundé Tuesday 6th, same day that President Biya was sworn into office for a 7th term.
C'est un jour de deuil national, de deuil de la démocratie au Cameroun.
Professor Kamto was arrested at Carrefour Lonkak in Yaoundé as he made impromptu remarks to young supporters affirming his victory.
Le peuple camerounais du nord au sud, de l'est à l'ouest, m'a élu.
He also expressed regret that the Anglophone crisis will drag on because the current administration has no appetite for a long-lasting solution.
Je suis venu vous dire, et je voudrais le redire, que notre ambition était et demeure de donner une réponse rapide à la crise qui ravage les régions du nord-ouest et du sud-ouest. Parce que je suis triste, parce que je souffre de savoir que mes compatriotes sont par milliers réfugiés dans les forêts ou sont dans des camps de réfugiés au Nigeria, alors que nous pouvions donner une réponse satisfaisante à leurs revendications. Je peux les assurer de ce que je continuerai de me battre.
Meantime, throngs of Kamto supporters were out demonstrating on main streets in Belgium and in France. The self-styled interim government of Ambazonia and the Ambazonia Self-Defense Council, ASC, are doubling down on the arrest and false imprisonment of Ambazonian freedom fighters who are not swearing loyalty to the Defense Council or its civilian hierarchy. On Thursday, November 8th, General Arke was, without any defense, convicted inter alia of indirect involvement in the death of a certain General Rambo and sentenced to life in prison for the duration of the war. The sentencing not only raises fundamental questions on war crimes admittedly committed under the auspices of Dr. Samuel Sako, the IG and the ASC, the language that General Arke will be a prisoner for the duration of the war begs other questions. Do the IG and ASC know when the war will end? Are they negotiating with La République du Cameroon to end the war and settle for the federation that unapologetic independence advocates have long accused them of? How can they guarantee the safety of Arki if their camp is attacked while he is in chains as a captive? 2 more ADF fighters were ambushed Friday by ASC fighters in NDIAN. Sources say ASC had invited the ADF fighters to discuss how they could all coexist and work towards an independent Ambazonia, but it turned out to be a trap, similar to how General Arki was captured by Amigo in BOYO. Reports say there was serious fighting between restoration forces and colonial forces of La République du Cameroon in Balignonga midday on Saturday. Casualties are yet unknown. The fate of 8 colonial paramilitary officers of La République du Cameroon remains unknown following an ambush of their truck midweek on the Abbey Bridge in Bangui, Northern Zone. Unconfirmed sources suspect Amba freedom fighters may have killed all 7 before any backup had a chance to rescue their colleagues, but no bodies have been located either. Reuters reported from Johannesburg Thursday that France's EDF group signed an agreement to build and operate a €1.2 billion or $1.37 billion hydropower project in Cameroon. It is the first step in a plan to expand its hydropower business in Africa, the company executive said. Such projects readily explain why the West has remained more than lukewarm to the genocidal crimes that are unfolding in Ambazonia. Innocent Chia, Ambazonia Calling.
This is Ambazonia Calling.
Because you have your army of occupation out in West Cameroon, you believe that when the people will rise, even if you took the whole of the French army and added to yours, you will never bring them down.
On the occasion of his taking the oath of office for the 7th term last October 6, the dictator of Cameroon, Paul Biya, called on armed groups resisting his regime's colonial domination of Ambazonia to lay down their weapons. What has been the reaction so far to that call is a question I posed to Ambazonia Calling's Tanyi Jude Agwa Ozugen.
It is the single most important message Paul Biya wanted to convey with his inauguration speech.
Je lance un appel à déposer les armes et à retrouver le droit chemin.
That call came with a threat that the regime will hunt down and kill anyone who did not heed it. Here's a tyrant Biya with journalist Manjenkang Gabriel providing English language interpretation.
À ces entrepreneurs de guerre,
the warmongers who are jeopardizing our national unity and preaching secession should know that they will not only face the full force of the law, but also the determination of our defense and security forces.
Forces de défense et de sécurité.
In response to calls within colonial Cameroon for autonomous regions and loud cries for total independence and peaceful separation from the Fed Union, Biya offered the state-broken record of decentralization.
Un bon nombre de réponses à ces préoccupations et à ces aspirations sera apporté dans le cadre de l'accélération du processus de décentralisation en cours.
Reaction to the speech and the continued brandishing of threat was both swift. It came from all corners. None were amused by Biya's lack of seriousness in addressing the issue. Ntumfoyn, who still calls himself an Anglophone and says he is concerned about what he still calls the Anglophone problem, found the speech to be void of any genuine offers. The response from the leaders of Ambazonian self-defense units like ASC and ADF was blunt, with spokespersons of the two organizations reacting with amusement that such a call could even be contemplated. Speaking on the BBC, Chris Anu said Ambazonians under ASC self-defense unit will have to be killed and bled to the last man standing.
We are not laying down the arms. We are asking him to withdraw his troops from the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. We will fight this war with the last blood in our body because he declared the war. We expect him to call off the war. We'll fight until the last person standing.
The reaction was no different from Cho Ayaba speaking on behalf of the ADF self-defense unit.
I have heard Mr. Biya said that the Ambazonian forces should lay down their arms. I want to remind him that we are fighting in the land of our birth. We are defending the land of the Kuva-Likenyes, the Abumbis. We are defending the land of all the brave warriors who've laid their lives down for Ambazonia. And I call on all Cameroon soldiers to lay down their arms within Ambazonia and to turn their arms against the very system that has made them slaves in the land of their birth. I want to remind the soldiers of Cameroon that they are fighting a loose battle, a battle they cannot win. They are bleeding in vain. They are dying in vain. They will be buried in unmarked graves in Ambazonia. And for all those who will survive, we will find your graves wherever you are buried, exhume your body and charge you for crimes against humanity, for crimes against the people of Ambazonia. Let the soldiers who carry guns against our people know you cannot defeat Ambazonia. You cannot defeat our brave soldiers because they are warriors in the land of their birth. They have courage, they have determination. They've got nothing more to lose. They've been denied the right to education, denied the right to life, denied the right to live a self-fulfilling life in the land of their birth. They've raised our flag, sang our anthem, and proclaimed the independence of our homeland. And their blood, their life will be laid down to make sure we defend the 43,000 square miles of the contours of our homeland. That is the honor for which they fight, in honor for all those who have died, those who are in jail. We remember and honor them. Their sacrifices will never be in vain.
One of the lawyers holding brief for Ambazonia, Barrister Asho Emmanuel Agbo, explained why the call by the dictator of colonial Cameroon did not make sense without the regime taking unilateral action to bring the war it declared to an end and withdrawing its troops from Ambazonia.
You cannot ask people to drop their weapons when you declare the war and you have not called off the war. So if he were to call off the war and ask the secessionists to drop their weapons, we can understand that. Yes, the environment is enabling for there to be a ceasefire and peace. But he is not doing so. He's instead threatening. I think the head of state and his government should realize that the military option does not work. And it is not workable because those boys who were using Dane guns 2 years ago are now using AK-47.
Ambazonian Calling must stress for the attention of all, notably the international community, that Dictator Biya's intention to focus on calling for arms to be laid down continues his never-ending determination to paint the Ambazonian independence restoration quest as violent. Nothing can be further from the truth. The belligerent responses from the leaders of self-defense units that we have played in this reportage captures only the voice of those assuming the role of protecting vulnerable population. It bears repeating that the overwhelming majority is for legal, diplomatic, non-violent, and peaceful separation from the failed union. This is Tani Jude Agua Ozugen for Ambazonia Calling.
Welcome to our special interview segment, The Devil Unmasked, The Truth Out. Welcome, Professor Tatamenta, to The Devil Unmasked.
Thanks for your flattering introduction, Ntumfoyn, and let us unmask the pathological liar and lord of hollow promises, Paul Biya.
Biya is often presented as a legalist, as someone who prefers to go to court to get judgment. How can you explain that he is waging war with the purpose of exterminating the people of Ambazonia?
That is the false claim peddled by the rattled propaganda box called CRTV and intellectual deadwoods in the Satanic Republic of Cameroon. Let me put it in very simple terms. Any criminal should always be frightened at the prospect of going to court to seek justice. Lucifer Biya Paul cannot afford to seek justice in any court because his country, the Satanic Republic of Cameroon, is signatory to the African Union Constitutive Act.
Do you have an example to elucidate that proposition?
I do, Ntumfoyn. The case of Bakassi really comes to mind. His decisions have led to a growing perception that criminals are laughing at the law. What is peddled around as legal victories concerning the Bakassi ruling by the International Court of Justice is a litany of fraudulent assaults at justice itself. For example, the Bakassi case at the International Court of Justice denied Nigeria's claim to that piece of land. It was not given to the Republic of Cameroon, whose territorial boundaries had no marital link with Nigeria at independence in 1960. Rather, it was southern Cameroon that had a maritime border with Nigeria. The insertion of word as indivisible in its 1996 so-called constitution was intended by the Sedating Republic of Cameroon to lay an illegal claim to southern Cameroon or Ambazonia, whereas there is no treaty of union between both independent states registered anywhere at the United Nations Secretariat as required by law.
Is it your view that the UN has a say in the ongoing war in Ambazonia?
Yes, Ntumfoyn. Article 2.4 of the United Nations Charter states, and I quote, "All members shall remain in their international relations from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state, or in any other manner inconsistent with the purposes of the United Nations. The declaration of war against the sovereign state of Southern Cameroon or Ambazonia is illegal, and Lucifer Paul Biya knows it. That is why he cannot face any independent or impartial courts. After all, domestic remedies are exhausted, and as soon as that is done, international law will catch up with the lord of misrule called Paul Biya."
Let me hear this from you again. Do the people of Ambazonia have the legal right to defend themselves against the colonialists who have invaded our homeland?
Let me tell you sincerely, Ntumfoyn, that Article 4 of the Constitutive Act of the African Union presents what appears to be an innovative norm in international law. Let us note here that intervention for humanitarian purposes had been debated ethically and morally. However, the African Union is the first organization to insert it in a normative charter. Indeed, Article 4H establishes the right of the Union to intervene in a member state pursuant to a decision of the Assembly in respect of grave circumstances, namely war crimes, genocide, and crimes against humanity. It does not state whether the African Union should request prior authorization from the United Nations Security Council. In addition to Article 51 of the United Nations Charter deals with the situation of self-defense. It allows a nation like Ambazonia to use self-defense. It allows the use of military force by a nation like Ambazonia that had been attacked by the Satanic Republic of Cameroon until the United Nations Security Council has taken necessary measures to deal with the problem. That is what Ambazonians are doing now.
Tell us, why is it that the UN Security Council has not taken up this matter and to demand of Cameroon to withdraw its troops from Ambazonia?
Ntumfoyn, your guess is as good as mine. Great power politics, international bribery industry, sponsored usually by the Satanic Republic of Cameroon, with Emperor Biya Paul at its corruption pinnacle.
Given that Mr. Biya cannot win this case in a court of law, he has now resorted to calling during his inaugural speech for Ambazonians to await protection from the same forces that are killing them. And he says he's going out there to liberate them from those who have proclaimed themselves their liberators. What do you think about that?
Ha ha ha, 2 point. Protect who? Biya Paul, we know, is a bad Samaritan, a pathological liar big time. In fact, that is Biya's golden power of experience in wanton targeted killings, rapings, lootings, extortions, torture, kidnappings, abductions. Cameroonian filmmaker exiled in the United States here, Jean-Paul Bekolo, confirms Biya is blind to the situation in Cameroon because uncontrolled power makes one blind to reality. That says it all, Ntumfoyn. How can Biya, who has sworn to decimate Ambazonians, protect them? Will you give ghosts to a hyena to protect?
Where do you put supporters of the tyrant Biya?
Biya Paul sycophants vary, Ntumfoyn. Some supporters of Biya Paul no doubt believe many of his falsehoods. Others may recognize the claims as falsehoods but tolerate them as a side effect of an off-the-cuff rhetorical style they admire. Others, perhaps, have become desensitized to the dishonesty by the sheer volume of Biya's lies. That is what the world was treated to on the 6th of this month during his swearing-in ceremony, heavily boycotted by the domestic and international communities.
What do you make of Mr. Biya calling Cameroon just one, not one and indivisible, in his most recent inauguration speech?
Ntumfoyn, a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to get its pants on. So said Winston Churchill. Biya thinks he can still deceive Ambazonians with words. That is silly nonsense.
What goal, in your opinion, are Ambazonians seeking at all costs in defending their homeland?
I can answer in one word from former British wartime Prime Minister Winston Churchill and Ntumfoyn. It is victory. Victory at all costs. Victory in spite of all terror from the butcher of Yaoundé. Victory, however long and hard the road may be, for without victory, there is no survival for Ambazonia.
Are you confident that Ambazonians are equal to the task?
Unequivocally, yes, Ntumfoyn. They are defending Ambazonia whatever the cost may be. They fight on in fields, in streets, and on the hills. I am convinced they shall never surrender, and even if, which I do not for the moment believe, Ambazonia or a large part of it were subjugated and starving by marauding terrorists from the Satanic Republic of Cameroon, then even our ancestors will carry on the struggle until in God's good time set forth to the liberation and rescue of Ambaland. However, this generation of Amazonians, I am convinced, are not passing the liberation back to the next generation.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Tata Menta, for joining us here on The Devil Unmasked, and a very wonderful week to you.
Thank you for having me, Ntumfoyn.
Ambazonia Calling. You are in the heart of the news shrine. Call us the Kalakuta Republic of commentary, opinion, and editorials. Ambazonia has been a guinea pig of colonization for now over 160 years. It could have been a country a long time ago. But as the monk from Balikumato Vazekov himself now reports, France is to blame.
France, bent on nipping Ambazonia in the bud since 1945. On March 30, 1965, the French consul Michel Moreau in BOYO, Ambazonia, wrote to his French ambassador in Yaoundé, Franco-Cameroon. Here is an excerpt. If the thing is done, it becomes evident that President Ahidjo favors the disappearance of the CPNC. He would only have to realize in one way or another that of the KNDP to institute in the Republic the system of the single party. End quote. So clearly the goal here was to destroy the multi-party politics in Ambazonia in order to create a one-party hegemony system in the Cameroons. September 1, 1966, as predicted by the French consul, President Ahidjo became president of the Cameroon National Union. Today's CPDM party in the Cameroons is a 52-year-old version of the CNU on steroids. In essence, the French succeeded in disabling Ambazonia by helping Ahidjo to destroy the fledgling democratic institutions of Ambazonia. KNDP, CPNC all dissolved and the main actors co-opted into the new one party, the CNU, which is now CPDM, and also by prodding Franco-Cameroon along the stubborn journey of assimilating a people who refuse to be assimilated, the people of Ambazonia. Today, in 2018, the Cameroon Republic is a de facto one-party state. It has a dominant party system that allows democratic multi-party elections, but the existing practices or balance of political power effectively prevent the opposition from ever winning the elections. To sum it up again, France primed the one-party system in Cameroon. That system is still up and running. Question: why? This is the monk from Ibalikumato for Ambazonia Calling.
Restoration train is going to restoration train. Restoration train is going to restoration train. Restoration train is sailing restoration train on the restoration journey of Ali Hibati. So get on now on the train. Everybody get on now on the train. Mothers, fathers, get on now on the train. Children, get on now on the train. Sister, brothers, get on now on the train. Husbands, wives too, get on now on the train.
Many citizens of Ambazonia are pulling out their Cameroonian passports and ripping them and putting them in a trash can. They're embracing different nationalities, including as American citizens. Those of them who naturalize American citizens had the opportunity to participate in the midterm elections last Tuesday. One of them was Barrister C. Ajimvambe. She talks to us here about all the things that were going on in her mind as she cast her ballots in her adopted country.
From the day I gladly cast aside my embarrassing Republic of Cameroon citizenship to embrace U.S. citizenship, I have never passed up any opportunity to exercise my fundamental right to vote, to feel empowered by the fact that I have a definitive say on who is going to make critical decisions affecting me, affecting my livelihood as a citizen of the United States and as a resident of the state of Maryland. However, this year, as I walked into my local polling station, I was overcome by a heavy heart and a feeling of deep despair. I perceived myself not as a citizen of the United States proudly walking up to exercise my right to vote, but rather as a citizen of Ambazonia who longed for the right to vote. The right to have a say in who I was entrusting with the responsibility of making decisions affecting my life. Decisions that would determine whether I would live out the rest of my days in a foreign land as a mere naturalized citizen or return to a free boya, to the land of my birth, the land of my blissful childhood days, my beloved homeland, Ambazonia. As I cast my vote, I wondered whether other Ambazonians, naturalized citizens of the United States, were feeling like me on this day. I also wondered whether Ambazonians in general, who have suffered disenfranchisement at the hands of La République du Cameroun for decades, would ever experience the empowerment that comes with casting one's vote in a transparent, free, and fair electoral process, having a say in the direction of one's life. Some would argue that this is not the time to experience such empowerment, even while acknowledging that there is indeed a leadership crisis in the Ambazonia liberation struggle and that there are questions and concerns as to whether, given such leadership crisis, we shall ever make it to Boya. This type of defeatism and self-disenfranchisement is precisely what might end up leading us to other lands or nowhere at all. Ambazonians are entitled to the empowerment that comes with having a say in who leads them to Boya. Ambazonians can and must exercise their right to elect competent, legitimate leadership that will take the right steps to stop the conflicts among our defense forces, facilitate and enhance the collaboration among frontline liberation movements, address the insecurity and carnage caused by the occupation of Ambazonia by La République du Cameroun, address the education of Ambazonian children, address the unlawful detention of Ambazonians, address the humanitarian crisis in Ambazonia, rekindle trust in financial management, rekindle momentum and create greater international awareness and commitment to the Ambazonia recognition quest. Engage boldly, selflessly, and fearlessly in pertinent diplomatic activities on behalf of the people of Ambazonia. Ambazonians, your vote is your voice. Do not stifle it. Do not allow others to stifle it. Use it. This is C. Ajimvo Ambe for Ambazonia Calling.
When injustice becomes law, resistance becomes a duty. We, the people of West Cameroon, will resist you, and if you want to take that territory by force, you will kill to the last man before you take it.
We don't do foolish, but when there are capital fools out there, we make it our duty to find them, and every week we crown one of them the Nyamfuka of the Week. It's time now for us to turn to our kings and queens of foolish, and here to present them is Veronique Vetimfe.
The third place finisher this week disseminated an audio message in which she made some outrageous accusations. According to the audio, the lady confronted members of the American Congress while she was waiting to cast her ballot in Americans' midterm election. The audio claims scandalously that American officials, beginning with President Trump, have accepted fat checks by way of bribe from the BIA regime. These accusations are silly, nonsensical, false, totally unverified and unverifiable. The author of the audio, whom we shall not dignify by naming, offers the kind of advice that only the BIA regime would extend. Abandon any hope of influencing Western democracy and go instead to North Korea, Iran, and other tyrannies. The unnamed lady, author of the audio, is this week's third place finisher of the Crown of Shame, the Nyamfuka of the Week. Nyamfuka them all. In the position of runners-up this week are officials of the Ambazonia Self-Defense Council, ASC. This week they published a statement reconfirming to the world that the IG and the ASC are willing to commit all manner of war crimes and political assassinations. ASC and IG officials admitted publicly that they are responsible for sabotaging other groups working to advance this revolution. The ASC and the IG are proving beyond any iota of doubt that they have been to the BIA School of Tyranny and are getting ready to graduate. They are now specialized in disarming other groups, in abducting self-defense forces of other groups, and in threatening anyone who calls them out on it. They are holding prisoners, fellow Ambazonians, in much the same way the BIA regime holds Ambazonians. Here is a warning for all those within the ASC who believe they are in the grace of the new tyrants and who are executing others on ground zero. Two things. The first is that your turn is coming. When you fall from grace, they will give you the exact same mistreatment they are meting out to General Ake. Whatever you're doing now, when a tribunal will be set up by the international community, the IG will not be able to protect you. As a matter of fact, they will throw you under the bus. For proving once more that they are the new monsters who will kill anyone in order to be at the helm of this revolution, the IG and the ASC are this week's second place finishers for the Crown of Shame, the Nyamfuka of the Week. Nyamfuka them all. The winner of the crown this week was easy to crown King of Foolish. It happens that this is not his first time he has been crowned king. But this week, he truly took foolishness to a whole new level. After earning previous crowns for claiming responsibility for the kidnapping of chiefs and the amputation of limbs, this week he took front and center in attributing the kidnapping at PSS Nkwen on Amber Boys. He granted interviews left and right, feeding the world media with hogwash and cock and bull, for playing public relation officers for the Biya regime on the fake kidnappings. Eric Tato, otherwise known as Gary Master, is this week's undisputable winner of the crown of shame, the Nyamfuka of the week. This is Veronique Vetimfe for Ambazonia Calling.
Nyamfuka them all.
Our people will not be brought down because we came into this union as equal partners.
The Biya regime demonstrated this week the extent to which it is on its knees begging the international community to list the independence restoration quest of Ambazonia as a terrorist organization. The regime pranked the entire community of nations using global media, fed, surprise, surprise, by some of the most gullible Ambazonian activists and leaders with a kidnapping that never was. Over the next few minutes, Ambazonia Calling will uncover what exactly happened at PSS Ntumfoyn. We will demonstrate that everything was fake. We will show you why the entire story does not hold water, why the story was entirely cooked up by the regime. This is a special Ambazonia Calling radio film of the events surrounding the prank kidnapping. It is the revenge of the truth on a regime that survives on crime and lies. And as all revenge, we are going to be serving this dish cold. Our narrators are Barrister Manjong Judambe and Divine Anje on his very first assignment on Ambazonia Calling. Welcome, Manjong.
The good news is that almost every student supposedly kidnapped from Presbyterian Secondary School Ntumfoyn, all but 2 along with their staff members, were released and reunited with their parents. So, what the Biya regime intended to sell to the world as another kidnapping drawn from the same playbook as the Chibok girls abducted by Boko Haram from Borno State, Nigeria, turned out, in the case of PSS Ntumfoyn, to be nothing but a storm in a teacup.
Now that we know the happy ending, let us go back to the beginning and walk our people through the big lie that the Biya regime tried to sell. Andre, welcome.
Thank you, Ntumfoyn. Ambazonia Calling has done all the homework there was to do in digging up the facts of what must be called the crime that never was. And we will be sharing all the facts we found. Exact times and hours remain fuzzy. But the school campus is located at the Tansen neighborhood of Ntumfoyn. The action happening at night had to defy the dusk to dawn curfew in the northern zone. The students say their kidnappers fired shots in the air before breaking into the dormitories, where a wild commotion, again, according to their accounts, is said to have erupted.
Right there, the story raises serious questions. How do kidnappers fire shots in the air at a school not too far away from the military camp and nothing happens? Were the soldiers in the camp all asleep or just part of the prank? Manjong.
There are more. What happened to the other students when the few were kidnapped and taken away? Did they just go back to sleep after all the gunshots, commotion, and the kidnapping of their fellow students? In which other secondary school in Ambazonia would students left behind not raise a wild alarm?
Now let's remember, according to the students, the kidnapping happened in the dead of night, somewhere around or just after 3 a.m. That raises some very important questions.
We have seen a video of the kidnapped students held at the church in Sem Bafut. If the students were jolted out of sleep, kidnapped and taken away, why is it that none of the students, when they were filmed, were wearing pajamas? Some of them on the video are wearing their school uniforms, raising the question, in which other boarding school in Ambazonia do students sleep in their uniforms?
Those are not all the questions, are they, Angie?
They are not. There are questions, world without end. By all accounts, 2 teachers and a driver were also kidnapped with the students. Which begs the question, do teachers at PSS Ntumfoyn sleep in the student dormitories? Or what were teachers and other staff doing in the dormitories at that hour of the night? If teachers live in the same dormitories, might it also be true that the drivers also live in the same dormitories? If the students threat all the time, as they claim, why may we ask, did the kidnappers need a driver?
You're getting me hooked on the story, people.
If we are to agree that the students were indeed kidnapped from their dormitory inside this well-guarded and gated school compound, what happened to the guards at the gates? Why did they not raise an alarm during the kidnapping or after the kidnappers left?
The reason the guards at the gate offered no resistance and raised no alarm after students left the campus at such an odd hour was because the principal was there, along with other staff, to explain that this were students going on a school-sanctioned outing. This was an inside job.
So what have we found out about how it is that some Ambazonian activists and leaders, notably in the United States, claimed responsibility for this kidnapping?
In implementing this prank, the regime knew exactly the activists and leaders of Amazonia in the USA who would jump on and claim responsibility for such an act. The regime knows that they have done this before. The same activists and amber leaders in the USA who were quick to claim responsibility for another kidnapping that never was. That is, the kidnapping of the mayor of BOYO, Patrick Ikema, and the so-called kidnapping of chiefs of the Southern Zone. The regime also knew the activists in the US who has called for the garrison of students, so they targeted the IG group and activist Eric Tato to take the bait.
Here, for context, is what Eric Tato threatened at the beginning of the school year, for those of you who did not hear him.
Now, Gary process you work. Whether or not you like it, if you know say be man picking, you get by, you be correct, papa, send your picking to school museum. You will not be threatened, I promise. If September comes, the first set of kids they go school, they go see what you call and say Njanja Muto. Njanja Muto. They go see Njanja Muto. Send them down for any mommy say, if I see any picking for school, if I see any picking for school, you know what very possessive. So I take the responsibility, man, not every type of coding anywhere. I will teach the picking how they teach Gary. I will teach you, I will give Gary lesson. Nonsense. When I think of the for joke, when they kill people that can't talk about school, no school, no, that is it. Listen, not Mr. Man, LeBron, Steve, not tell me no. Any picking go, me the Gary the picking. In fact, I don't move from one finger to the entire hand. If any picking go there, Gary one hand. Gary one hand. Nonsense.
The regime therefore knew that it would take little to no persuasion for Eric Tato to become the town crier for the prank.
Yes, Ntumfoyn, I could not agree with you more. It remains to be seen if he is not a double agent. Eric Tato took the airwaves, telling everyone that Amber Boys had done what the Germans left undone. The IG group followed in short order, and everything was going well. The regime considered that it had successfully pulled off the reenacting of the Chibok girls.
What ruined the party that Atangangis and the co were getting ready to throw to celebrate the fact that they had finally gotten Ambazonians to admit to being terrorists and kidnappers. The reposting of the video of the PSS baffled kidnapping and the positive identification of a Cameroon army officer as the chief kidnapper ruined everything.
Then what happened?
The regime tried desperately to rescue the prank by trying to get everyone to forget the PSS baffled kidnapping video. It did not help that Eric Tato, the main narrator of their story to the international media, got mixed up with the 11 kidnapped earlier versus the 81 taken as part of the prank. Ambazonia Calling is yet to establish how the regime worked with or not with the moderator of the Presbyterian Church who clarified, in the heat of the confusing reports from Eric Tato that the 11 captives had nothing to do with the 81. The prank had gone south.
Once that version was contested as fake news, the entire operation started to unravel. What was urgent now for the regime was the need to release the students and prevent anyone from finding out that this was an insider operation.
As everyone knows, there was no armed confrontation or confrontation of any kind between so-called fake Amber Boys and real Amber Boys, because there were never two groups involved. The kidnapping was pulled off by fake and regime-hired Amber Boys who wanted the crime tied to real Amber Boys.
Would that be when the regime operatives, pretending to be Amber Boys, knew that they needed to cut and run? Is that when they dropped off the students at the church where they were finally rescued?
Yes, indeed. And you may have already heard an audio message from a lady in Sem Bafut explaining why the brutal soldiers of BOYO did not burn down Sem and did not brutalize the inhabitants. The regime knew where their fake kidnappers had kept the students, and with the prank having been discovered, they simply wanted to get the students and to return them to their school.
They just took us, when we started the journey at night, we trekked like, let me say, 1 kilometer or even more, and we rested at, and I don't know, the church was like an abandoned church, and then we trekked again for a longer distance, and they left us at a Presbyterian church so that the military will come and find us.
Freelance journalist Peter Tarr, who was the stringer on this story for the BBC, set the scene, putting words in the mouth of the students they were about to interview by saying the students were arrested by Amber Boys.
And when we hear the boys here, it points to the separatist fighters because they are generally called the boys.
When the female student, a 15-year-old, was interviewed by the BBC, she churned out the same thing.
Who was it that kidnapped you? The boys. And how do you know it was the boys? From the way they speak, the way they look.
Strangely, the students said French-speaking regime forces were the ones that struggled to speak English, even more than Amber Boys. There's a reason why the regime found it necessary to insist that the kidnappers were not French speakers, that they were not soldiers.
Indeed. And are we surprised? The officer of the Cameroon army, Amel, who had been unmasked in another video, and his accent found to be glaringly francophone, had caused the regime to insist on that particular detail. Here is Amel, speaking in one-syllable words to students under his captivity.
Good morning, young man. Yeah.
My name is Walking Bernard.
Talk louder.
My name is Walking Bernard. My father's name is Ngoye John. My mother's name is Ngoye Rhoda. I'm from PSS Square, student of Form 5 Science.
Yeah, young man. What's thy name? Yeah, you. Yeah, you. You. So you. Talk louder.
I'm a student of PSS Square.
Yeah.
My name is Ken Wilfred.
You will notice, listening to him, that he can handle pidgin pronunciation very well, so long as he is speaking in one-syllable words.
That's absolutely true. Once Amel said more than 2 words, his French accent betrayed him big time. Listen to him in the following excerpt, and you know without any iota or scintilla of doubt that he is French speaking.
So, do you like to go to school again?
No.
Eh?
No. Speak louder.
Eh?
No.
Why? Eh?
Because there's a crisis going on in Cameroon.
And then crisis going on, and they when I like to go to school. What make we not to go to school? Eh?
They call for us.
Eh?
They call for us.
Who call for us?
The principal.
The
principal.
Okay, did you get the principal number?
No.
Eh?
No.
There is more audio of Amel showing his francophone accent.
So now, we don't know what to do. So now, we'll open our own school here. Eh?
Stop.
Eh?
Yes.
Or we not like to go back? Eh? We not like for go back for school?
No.
Eh?
No.
So now, when I think that we can do what? To go back to your parents, to go and do what?
Stop schooling. Stay in the house.
No. All of us to stay here. And go to school here. Eh? Eh?
Yes.
I would like to say this to me, all of us will stay here and fight for this struggle inside Ambazonia land. We not like so? Eh?
Yes.
We not like so?
Yes.
Okay, and then we'll we'll sit here until this struggle finish. So, until this struggle finish, before I leave winner. So, thank you.
Take us back to the interview on the BBC, Anjay.
Ntumfoyn, Peter Tarr of the BBC exclaimed in pity at the fact, according to him, that the students had, in only 2 days of captivity, lost weight. A lot of weight.
It's really been so difficult to see these children looking emaciated.
And there was trouble with that version, right?
Absolutely, Ntumfoyn. There was more than trouble with that version. The students contradicted the BBC, explaining that they were treated nicely, fed appropriately, and even provided with warm baths.
They gave us food, they gave us fruits, they gave us warm water to bathe, they made a place for us to sleep.
Ambazonia Calling can confirm that the regime wanted the world to liken Amba boys to Boko Haram. It is one thing for a movement to recommend a school boycott, and quite another to go out there and kidnap students.
The other truth is that students described the so-called Amba boys who played kidnappers in this case as being based at Mile 8, Bafut. Suppose Amba boys based in Bafut wanted to kidnap students and use the kidnapping to frighten other students from going to school. Would those Amba boys leave Bafut, trek across several council areas, passing many schools on the way, including leaving another PSS in Bafut itself, to come all the way to Nkwen to stage the kidnapping?
Notice that although the students were held, according to their own accounts, in an abandoned church on the first day and then dropped off at another church, that the students seemed to buy the braggadocious claim made by the so-called Amba boys that no one would have been able to find them.
If the boys never wanted the military to find us, no matter what they could do, it could see the futile, would be useless because they could never find us. Only something supernatural could make the military find us. If the boys could not have released us, then there was no way that the military could have found us, and there was no way that we could ever run.
How difficult is it to find students hidden away in a church, abandoned, or in use?
I have to thank both of you, Manjong and Anjay, for walking us through this radio film of the fake kidnapping. One thing that is no longer in doubt after this prank kidnapping is that some within this revolution are in fact working hand in glove with the colonial regime in Yaoundé.
Here is our letter to Joshua.
Dear Joshua, I hope everything is going well with you. Hope all is going well for your much hated citizens of the Banana Republic of Angola. Someone was suggesting to me the other day that your country should really be called the Sardine Republic. Apparently all the shrimps the Portuguese found and decided to name your country after, those cameras. Apparently they all grew into Njanga, they grew into sardine at the age of universal suffrage. The story your supporters are now bragging about is that you did a little better than Jesus during the campaign. While the Son of Man multiplied 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread, Joshua, it seems, multiplied sardine and bread too. The Son of Man walked on water and Joshua walked on stuffed ballots all the way to Etudi. Unlike Peter, who doubted when the master asked him to come to him on the sea, Joshua, you had no trouble. Not even a huge tropical storm codenamed Hurricane Kamto stirred up the sea enough to frighten you. The Son of Man had to wait for his crucifixion, his death, and resurrection. You were able to establish a democratic republic in which the rule of one man, one vote, really works as one sardine, one bread, one vote. That is why I was surprised to find out that your entire regime trembled so badly that they violated the law in opening up the gates of New Bell Prison on a Saturday to allow journalist Mimi Mofo to walk free. What happened to the lions? Was Mimi Mofo not supposed to be fed to the lions? Was that not what Colonel Pom at the gendarmerie in Douala had promised her? I always thought that Colonel Pom promised a repeat of what he did in 1992 with Frundi. Just humiliate them, lock them up. Finally, some of your citizens understood why your regime arrested Mimi Mofo. You found out that her mother's last name happens to be Ayaba. And voila, your regime reached some truly dumb conclusions. What a shame it was to see that your regime needed to bring up the last name of Mimimafo's mother in a case involving her, and yet not the last name of her father. Was it the Americans who finally gave you the fright, the scare, who caused you to release her immediately, or they would spill the beans about how your evil regimes put 9 bullets on the head of the American missionary? Who do you think you are fooling, Joshua? Do you really think that your autopsy will be considered in the United States? The family of the late Reverend Charles Truman Wesco and his insurance company will find out everything. They will spend every dollar they need to do to unmask the truth, Joshua. Do you think that Reverend Wesco was one of those Ambazonians you think you can just kill like flies and dump? When next you want to accuse a journalist of disseminating fake news, spreading falsehoods, threatening national cohesion, or inciting a rebellion, think about what your regime has done. Just look in the mirror. You will see, staring back from the mirror, not Mimimafo, but the likes of CRTV, where every newscast begins with, "And now lies from CRTV." Fake news is when you claim that Joshua won the presidential election when a certain Kamto really carried the day. Falsehood is when Atango Nji Pablo, who is really Peter the Foolish, thinks that it will be impossible to find out that a non-existent American opinion survey company based in Houston, which gave Joshua the winner of the election, long before it happened, really belongs to his junior brother. The regime was buried in cybercrime when it pretended that an online survey showed Joshua winning the ballot by 71%. No surprise there. Now, fake news, Joshua, is when your regime announces that the election of Nkunkuma was witnessed by observers from Transparency International, when it turns out that the Wolowos and her Yeye boyfriend were really on vacation in Gola from Darkness International. Fake news is to be caught red-handed at the Constitutional Council during hearings on election fraud, displaying as authentic election tally sheets those that bore no signatures at all. I could go on, but I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to get at. Let me tarry just one more minute here. Worse than just disseminating fake news, your regime has created its own fake Amber Boys, managed and commanded by half-educated university degree frauds like Ekema Patrick, from 2.5 dropouts like Atangonji Peter, and some church moderators that parents should examine very closely before trusting their children to. Was the kidnapping of the students at PSS Nkwen your new way of telling the world how much you adore the methods of Boko Haram? Are you not ashamed, Joshua? Why do you go after children? After burning elderly women alive in their homes, after going around shooting dead the mentally disabled, you are now reduced to sending your agents to kidnap students in secondary school dormitories? What is next for you, Joshua? Will it be your troops storming maternities and orphanages to take toddlers hostage? Did the toddlers you executed in the north not suffice? You bloodthirsty idiot. You have been listening to Ambazonia Calling. Our producers today are Ken Wanaku and Jeff McCoy. Logistics, Joe Costa and Krista Cunningham. Our music is from Ken Wanaku, the monk from Ibarikumato Vetzekov himself, from Williamford, an Amber legend of blessed memory, from Eric Matisse, and from Prince Ajwa Alem of Ajam Sonic Catherine, USA. Ambazonia Calling is a co-production of the Missions Tribune, Compass Free Press, and Africa Freedom Network. You can find us on the web at themissionstribune.com, compassfreepress.com, and africafreedomnetwork.com. Next Sunday is another day. Until then, keep up the faith. Keep up the fight for the independence of Ambazonia. Stay Amber strong.